of the hour. It's going to be the Medical Amateur Radio Council Digital Voice Net, our first session of 2023. Right now we call it the DVNet, and we're looking for an identity and perhaps a time and change. So that will be the topic today when we convene the net. We're still about less than a minute away. I'm operating out of Hawthorne, Florida, which is okay. Just waiting for the time to turn before I say too much, but operating Hawthorne, Florida, which is 15, 17 miles east of the University of Florida in Gainesville, north central Florida. So it's central Florida, but it's also the northern aspects of that before you reach the Panhandle. I do not have the place in Palm Beach County anymore in South Florida, so all net control will be out of Hawthorne, Florida, unless we're traveling from now on. This is AA4FL. The top of the hour is here. We're convening Marco, the Medical Amateur Radio Council Digital Voice Net. Members are certainly welcome to participate, but so is everyone else. So if you're an amateur and you're listening or monitoring, please join in. Please join in for the discussion. But we do ask that you check in so we know you're here. This is directed net, so you'll be working through net control. AA4FL, and we have a little bit of housekeeping here to make sure the net works effectively. I don't transmit for more than 2 minutes, so with that in mind, I'm going to let it drop for just a second. And back again after a short pause. Don't tail the person in front of you. I'm too close. I mean, you certainly want to give some time after they have their transmission drop. You do this because the quadrant array is a complicated selection of servers, repeaters, and all kinds of modalities for the on-ramp to the internet through the net and from the radio to the net. And we need everything to sync and harmonize. So when it drops, let that synchronization take place. Make sure that your transmission is picked up. And part of the reason for the 2 minutes is not because everybody's coming in through a repeater, but that way you'll be time limiting yourself in case there is a technical fault on our side. So I see we have N5RTF. Chip is us here today. Good morning, Chip. We're going to start some discussion here momentarily. But are there any other stations here is there anyone here on a limited time that would like to check in that can't stay? Go ahead and make your call now to AA4FL. Okay, none heard. We do have a few other stations that are certainly monitoring the net. So M6GSN, I know you're on NetLogger, but if you're here, we do welcome hams that are not Marco members to participate. Marco being the Medical Amateur Radio Council, a group of health professionals, but also people that have some personal interest in the health professions, don't have to hold a license in the health professions, as well as the amateur population in general for the SNAP. So we welcome you to participate. We do ask that individuals check in so it can be part of the directed net activity. Of course, if somebody wants to listen here without being acknowledged, you're welcome to, but we prefer to have you check in. So are there any stations now? Again, we had there's no emergency traffic, no limited time. So far, I have myself, J0BXP, PY2BBQ, WA1EXA, and N5RTF. Are there any additional check-ins? So make your call at this time.
And 911, November 9, Oscar, Mike, Lima, Happy New Year.
QSL, Howard, Happy New Year as well. And 9 OML is checked in. I hadn't, we'll pause for a few check-ins and in a number of minutes. But if Etsu is still here, JA0BXP, it's very late in Japan. It's probably after midnight now. So Etsu, if you're still here, why don't you go ahead and take the mic and pass along your greetings so we don't keep you up too late. JA0BXP, AA4FL.
Thank you for the group JA0 Bravo 8 Alpha. Thank you very much, Jay. And Happy New Year to all. And I should read out right now because it's just midnight. Thank you. I have been to Sao Paulo at the meeting of Mr. Arthur Sony. World Federation of I was found in medicine and biology maybe nearly 10 years ago. Thank you very much for talking on the divineness of Marco. I will fade out right now. Thank you, and see you again after the next TV meeting opportunity. Now back to Jay.
Sue, thank you very much for joining us today and staying up late in morning to the early morning since you've just passed the midnight hour. We'll let you go off to sleep so you can have a very nice day tomorrow. And we'll carry the conversation that you and I started through the discussion. I made a notation of what you and I talked about. 7-3 Etsu. AA4FL will be taking check-ins after Etsu's final comment.
Thank you, and 7-3, and good night.
Always a pleasure to have Etsu come in with us, and when it's 1500 UTC, it was even more of a hardship. He was staying up late all the time, but it doesn't help him much when we change our hours. He's forced to stay up extremely late. And up for discussion today is the actual direction of the NAT, priorities of the NAT, how we're going to incorporate it into Marco in general. Are there any additional check-ins right now at this time with Marco Medical Image Radio Council DVNet? Make your call, AA4FL. Okay, with no additional check-ins, I'm going to start the discussion off and prime it here with some comments. I believe Hilton is already, and Mark of WA1EXA have already heard some of the discussion. So, in discussing how the DVNet could be applied to the benefit of Marco and its members, it's obvious that it's difficult for international members to participate due to the time differences of propagation. 20 meters, of course, pretty much rules them out. So there is an incentive to have international participation using the DVNet, and if we have a time that's a little more favorable, Etsu said he would be more than happy to recruit new members, and I'm sure we would have the same from other members that are overseas. And only a deleterious effect if we moved up an hour and made it, say, a permanent start at 9 a.m. on the East Coast. It would certainly make our West Coast members have to get up at 6, but none have been participating. Those adversely affected, though, would include Hawaii and Alaska, but currently that doesn't seem to be an issue. So having an identity of a Marco International Net or International DV Net, I don't know why one even needs to put DV in there for publishing how to get onto the net. might demystify the DV and having the international. Perhaps we could be a little more attractive to members to join in. We could incorporate the ground rounds in some way and sort of kick off the topic, knowing what the topic is for the week, hearing some international input on it to offer on Sunday. So every growth and change is not a negative. We're trying to find ways to be more, not more just effective, but also more beneficial to our members. And that's not only professional opportunities, that's social opportunities too. So with that in mind, let's continue the discussion, moving it on to PY2BBQ, right?
Okay. For FL in the group, this is PY2BBQ Hilton returning. Well, I'm afraid Itsu is gone right now, but I like to say if he's still hearing us that I'm happy to know that he's been here in São Paulo about 10 years ago. And as you probably know, São Paulo has the biggest Japanese population outside Japan. We had a huge immigration of Japanese people from 100 years until about 40 years ago. And talking about the directions of our DVNet, that it's something to think about. Although it's been always a pleasure to be with you on the Saturday mornings, what we saw, especially after the COVID-19 was not such a great subject to be discussed, was a refreshing of our meetings and only a few and the same participants. So we surely need to change, and not only by putting some new topics for discussion, but also perhaps the international meeting, as you suggested, would be an excellent idea, and we could manage to do it with probably monthly. Monthly, I think, would be nice with choosing an adequate subject to be discussed. Probably, I would. Let's refresh this. Wait one. Okay, PY2BBQ returning. I was saying. I think that if we had a specific subject to be discussed, like a new virus, a new disease, or a new vaccine, or things like that, and a very short, very short talkings from one or two specialists, and then open to discussions, it would probably bring more people to the net. And yes, the problem with the timing, we will never have a good time for everybody. So I think one thing we could do is either to do more than one international net in different times, or to change if each month the time of the international net. So that's what I talk about these minutes, and I'd like to know your opinion about it. So back to you, Jay. For FL, in the group PY2BBQ.
We're talking about nets here, but we're also talking about nets as an extension of an overall communication strategy to members. So having a publication and having different formats of nets with different times, but still have them be connected in some fashion, is desirable. You want your members to feel engaged. We also can create other ways to do that happen. Um, that may be more attractive. Maybe we'll have some operating activities, contests within our club members. Maybe it will be a DX sprint. There's many ways to engage members, but we have to do it where there's a selection that's attractive to members, where they can self-select what they want to participate in. So to turn it to Mark, WA1EXA, I'm looking forward to hearing your comments. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, A4FL Group, WA1EXA. All interesting, very interesting. I can say from my part, I would really appreciate if there was a better way might be able to integrate the Sunday net into with digital. I think that there's a lot of people that we would be able to get more comments and be able to hear them if we had some way of being able to integrate those two nets so that we could hear and converse both digitally and on 20 meters at the same time. Now, I'm not an expert in this in this area, so I know there got to be a lot of issues to do that. I'm not even sure if it's legal, but that would be a big help. As far as the timing goes, what Hilton says is correct. Standby one. WA1EXA. You really not going to find an optimum time. I like the idea of moving times around so that we get different people from different parts of the world. That would make some sense, although it would be a complicated calendar. And of course, people would have to follow the calendar and look at it because it wouldn't be a automatic happen. It'd be a different time every so many weeks. But that is one way of taking care of the international side. But the integration of the two nets would be, I think, a big help for Saturday. Many times, and I'm sure other people have the same problem, I can only hear one or two people. Sometimes I cannot hear the person that's even giving the lecture. Sometimes, most of the time, I can't hear all the people make comments. And for me to make a comment myself is difficult because I know a lot of people can't hear me. And it's all got to be through relays. So that would be that's kind of my suggestion. White one. I did want to make one comment. You were talking about the students, and I can say that in the Northeast here. By the way, I'm transmitting from Cape Cod, north eastern, I should say, eastern part of Massachusetts, about 30 miles out in the Atlantic Ocean. Um, in the Northeast here, we have many pharmacy schools, and we see most of the schools have first generation, and even people that have been born in other countries. The countries that we see, there's still a good representation from Latin America, but we also see quite a few coming from Philippines, Japan. We did have for a while at Connecticut, we had an exchange program with China. I don't know if they still do that. We do get a lot of the Oriental students coming in, either that or first generation coming in from there. So that seems to be a major population that in the pharmacy school anyway. I don't know if it's any different with dentistry or medical. I think it's true also with nursing. So that is our experience here. Back to you, Jay. A2FL and the group WA1EXA.
Well, Mark, thank you for being here and offering a wonderful input. Certainly consistent with everything else we're discussing, with the added concept of perhaps finding a way where at least once a month the rounds could integrate with the DVNet. I'm not sure of the time slot availability. Maybe Howard and I can talk, and I know Al will be speaking here a few down the line, and talk to the Quadnet administrators and see what's available. Because well, we're getting creative, to say the least. Their creativity is exciting in a lot of ways, and our membership has been steady. We are an aging population within Marco. The DVNet has not, as of yet, paid dividends to the input of involvement of younger people. But like anything in life, there's times when wax and wanes in clubs too. There was more of a participation, as one pointed out here. I think it was Hilton during the COVID challenge. People were home, people were engaged, people were interested. They wanted to know the latest, hear what other people's opinions were, and certainly from the standpoint of the DVNet, that time has passed. But as we talk about the Grand Rounds, we will not ignore the DVNet in that discussion as an overall strategy, and perhaps technologically ways to enhance the Grand Rounds in our domestic, what I would think is mostly a domestic HFNet, no matter what the propagation is, basically because of the time of day and in combination with the propagation of those perspectives. So let's hear some wisdom from M5RTF. Go ahead, Chip, to say A for us.
This is M5RTF. I don't know about the wisdom part. I'm coming in this morning on my laptop through D-Star. Got the dongle working again. I cannot get DMR working this morning. There may be a grandmaster problem or whatever. On the dashboard, it's showing yellow. Maybe somebody can tell me what that means. Everything else looks good, but I'm just not getting anything through. As far as the time for the net, I would like to see it earlier. It's purely personal. There's a podcast that I like to participate in at 9 o'clock, and it's a conflict. But even more than that, I would suggest moving the digital net to Sunday. Do it at 8 o'clock Central Time or whatever that works out to elsewhere. And then move on from that to CWL, from that on to Grand Rounds, and just dedicate Sunday morning then to Marco. If everybody's in Marco mood, mode, then maybe you'll get some more activity than if you try to spread it over several days. It's hard to get people to commit more than 1 day a week to anything. Over.
Okay, certainly, Jeff M5RTF is the A4FL. Tomorrow we're going to be discussing these subjects in the grand rounds, and we can certainly involve the DV net in the contextual discussions. Having everything on one day is a very valid point, very constructive point, and not understanding human nature the way you do, a very valued opinion. There could be an opportunity for a different group of people if we did a weekday night, people that aren't participating in the grand rounds, and as long as they're separated out, the two consecutive days on the weekends are hard to solve. So that's something to consider as well as to what band we would have it on and how we would organize it. Could we do a 40-meter approach in combination with a TV on one evening and do them simultaneously and do it on NetLogger and have discussions come back in all different modalities? It's an interesting concept. Again, every time we complicate the subject matter, we make it hard for additional volunteers to participate. You make it almost like a paid employment job that somebody has to dedicate 52 days of their life to, including the preparation and the technology that's involved. I'm going to turn it back. Let's go back to Mark for additional input before we go back to Chip. Go ahead, WA1EXA.
Hey, WA1EXA. I
Okay, is there anyone else hearing Mark? This is AA for us. Okay, assuming the drop is on my side, I'm going to turn it back to you, Chip, with one additional comment here. When I logged on to Blue TV today, it said the Brandmeister network could not be connected. That was on the Blue TV site. N5RTF, AA for us. I'll go ahead.
Well, if you're correct, the easier that you make something for people, the more likely you are to get participation. And it's a lot easier to ask people to dedicate one morning a week rather than three, even nights. It's hard to remember and hard to adjust your schedule. There's always conflicting demands on your time. But Sunday mornings are generally pretty free, and you get up earlier. I get up early anyway, so it wouldn't be no problem at all to start that. Did you wonder how that CME? Right, would you like to talk about CME for a moment?
Well, why don't we talk about that on the Grand Rounds Zoom call tomorrow? So everyone that's here listening, hopefully you can participate in the Zoom call, the Zoom for the Grand Rounds tomorrow to make sure everyone can participate. We're starting off with a half an hour of check-ins, 15 minutes early, 15 minutes after, and then 15 minutes after the net starts in HF, we're going to transition to a Zoom session so we don't have to worry about the vulgarities propagation. And I don't say vulgarities lightly. It's really cruel to our membership in an effective net. So we do have to be creative in many ways. So, Chip, if it's okay, we discuss the CME tomorrow. Is that acceptable to you? AA4FL.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. I think it's the word you're looking for is vagaries of propagation. We're rarely vulgar.
Well, thank you. And you just pointed out that I'm the vulgar one here. Sorry about that. I guess I should stick to dentistry. Although that seems to be a renewed aspect in my life too. I'll tell you A1EXA. Mark, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here. Did you not copy my last transmission?
No, unfortunately, we copied your call sign and then you dropped. Unfortunately, go ahead. WA1EXA. Do you want to go ahead and make some comments? Are you copying over?
WA1EXA. I am copying. I can copy you guys fine. I don't know if you're hearing me. I just want to make sure you are before I can get into things.
QSL, we just heard you this last time. It was just a long transmission that was cut short. All previous transmissions have been received. So go ahead and proceed, Mark. WA1EXA, AA4FL.
Okay, A4FLWA1EXA. I'll keep this to the executive summary. I said we'd like to incorporate the problems that we have with the regular HF net, being able to hear, because that is a problem, and being able to contribute, because that is a problem also. And the other thing is we need to look at people in Canada, because we don't get too much people involved from Canada, and I think they have the same time schedule as we do. So that's kind of the executive summary, WA1EXA.
Well, thank you, Mark. Full copy. As we transition, if we do it 9 in the morning, East Coast Nats will be 6 a.m. in British Columbia, as they have the same issues as the West Coast. Our one participant from British Columbia has moved to Ontario now, so he wouldn't be affected so much. But thank you for pointing that out. So we have one additional person that's checked in, hasn't had a chance to speak yet, and Howard's been contacting the administrators here in the Quadnet and keeping them appraised of our situation. So I'm sure he has a lot of valuable input. N9 OML, AA4FL.
AA4FL and 9OML. Hello. Happy New Year. Hope everyone in the group is well. I don't know if I have anything valuable, but I have 3 things I wanted to say. And one life crack, I think if it was a mystical god of propagation, it would be Sparks. And I think he creates an awful lot of vulgarity. If he engenders it among hams. Looking at the Quadnet schedule, at Ozark 30 on Sunday morning, mostly what people would think of as Saturday night, there is a net out of Australia. 9:30 UTC, 10:30 UTC part of the year. Other than that, they really don't have morning nets. They have a 5 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern, and 9 p.m. Eastern. So I would still want to talk to them, but it appears that Sunday morning would be a reasonable slot to request. I'll break, and then I think I have two more that I was going to use. And then while continuing, if there was a way to simulcast and there were no technical problems, regulatory problems, and I'd have to look into the book for that because I don't know either. One resource to kind of look at, Jay, maybe the engineering students right at your home station, since it sounds like a project that would be up their alley. And I would think it would be doable, given the internet nature of the digital voice radio traffic. There'd be a little bit more work with syncing and all, but I would think if anybody's able to do it, they should be the kids that could. I don't know if it would require equipment from Marco or not. Right. Hey, for I don't know. I think I saw another station there. If you want to address that, and then I can come up with one more point.
Thank you for pausing. I see that an AD8FK and net logger has now dropped. So, are there any additional check-ins? Anyone else? KB2 EBA, would you like to check into the Marco digital voice net? We're talking about health-related topics right now. Go ahead.
I'm just listening on the side. I was doing a quick check here, so I'm just listening.
Okay, thank you for letting us know, James. And thank you for being here and saying hello and acknowledging our call. The net will go here probably for about another 10 minutes, and then the quad-net array should be back to general amateur use. It's a slotted time we have here for Medical Amateur Radio Council net. Those of us not just in health-related fields, but also anyone that's interested in health-related topics and fields. We have a weekly net here, so of course, if you find it interesting, welcome to hang around. We're talking about some technical aspects of improving our communication amongst our different nets and publications, and with that, I'm going to turn it back to N9 OML.
Thanks, Jay. And I don't know here. The last comment I was going to make is kind of almost a marketing thing. But if you're thinking about making changes, instead of just calling it the Marco Digital Voice Net, you may want to work something in there about it being, all modes or all digital modes. I wonder if there's people that aren't reading far enough to catch on that the quad-net array does all that transcoding and see it as a DMR net when you call it a digital net. It seems to me, just talking to people that are newer to this, they equate digital and DMR and may not realize that we have the transcoding capabilities of quad-net in play here. So those are my observations, and I can talk to you offline about when and how you want me to approach the quad-net folks. And then I'll know back to that control.
AA4FL on net control. Do you think all is too definitive a term, or would as I say, international multi-mode net sound like a coinage to use, something that would be more effective?
And then I'll know, I think that was directed at me. I know that I'm going to get too wordy if we go the other direction, but I'm afraid to say simply all mode and we're not simulcasting or somehow linking with the HF modes, HF voice, but other modes like that when they confuse people. But you might think about it. If we do some kind of a simulcast or interlinking, that would be great. If not, then maybe you have to include digital voice in there. But I just thought it might be something helpful to get people to give it kind of a passing glance, because that's what I'm afraid of, is that people kind of look at it and say, I don't have that.
AA for us all. Actually, I was thinking of just calling it international net, and then hoping that international was attractive to those that are on the Grand Mountains thought in a different way, and then when they look into the instructions for signing on the net, at that point, get that verbiage up front that does not discourage them. Does that sound reasonable to you? Howard at 9OML, AA4.
It does. I would just want to make sure that what we were doing was either so ambiguous, as that is where they would have to look and determine whether they had the equipment to participate, or specific enough that they realize it right up front. I'm afraid we may be, and I could be wrong, I mean, I don't hold anybody, but we may be causing some people to take a quick glance and decide that's not what they're equipped for. Because apparently this is the burgeoning area of ham radio, and yet we're not seeing significant increase in participation here. So in theory, some of our people should have this equipment. Just my observations, but food for thought. And I don't know, back to that control.
Yeah, QSL. You know, this is AA4. This last few weeks have seen FT8WW on from Crozet Island. A rare country, very rare country that everybody wants to work. And he's done majority FT8. And you hear these comments on the reflectors in the spots where people are upset that it's, FT8, let's do real ham radio. They don't consider digital modes to be ham radio. So those of us that appreciate this, just another tool in the toolbox. And amateur radio is a dynamic hobby composed of many different aspects. We understand that. But for the people that are just interested in HF or DX, it's a hard concept for them that the world does change and they're used to traditional amateur radio. Although there's certainly a lot of individuals that embraced FT8 and EHF digital modes because of the DX. We don't seem to be having that same desirability on the digital modes here that involve voice over IP. But that's, it takes time and generations for change. We see that in society. We see change we think back to what happened 50 years ago and start to correlate it with what's happening now, and you see history being reborn. I'm not going to put that in political terms or historical terms. You can see the precursors of war and the current wars and the warning signs that are so similar. And it just takes generations here for people to realize or forget. And there's lots of new amateur radio operators coming on board that would be certainly advantageous to have DVNet for. And it will happen with time. It just hasn't happened yet. But the more we integrate our services, the more attractive we make. Perhaps having that international net would help. We're not running surveys here. We're not hiring a marketing company, but time for a little bit of change. I'll make a list for follow-up conversation. Who would like to be on that list? Go ahead and make your call to AA for us.
And I don't know, just one comment that you may all be aware of. is now put out there. In one of the numerous emails I got from the ARRL, just about 2 weeks ago, they made reference to two pieces of pending legislation that were passed as bills. One of them had to do with changing the bond rate for transmission, and I think it had been temporarily raised for, I can't remember if it was the hurricanes or COVID, and they're talking about making that a permanent change. I don't really know what all the impact of that will be of any kind of operating I'm involved in. The other one was a resurrection of the federal preemption against local communities, and this was both to HOAs with covenants also, banning ham radio antennas outright. So the bill is worded, addresses HOAs, municipalities, states, so it would be interesting. And it is available information on the ARRL website, and I'm sure it'll be in the magazine also. And I know a lot about Connect Control.
Well, thank you for that information, Howard. I appreciate that. It certainly would be very helpful to a lot of amateur radio operators, even if it's simple HF antennas. You can't even throw a wire or any kind of a small beam or a hex beam. It would certainly affect a good portion of our members that can't get onto the grand rounds. Good news, hopefully it proceeds. It's getting forward as the bill doesn't take it to succession. Everybody should read what the ARRL has to say and help in any way they can with their local legislators. I didn't hear any additional comments. Now, we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow on the grand rounds and in the Zoom session. So please check the Google group postings for the link to the Zoom session. And let's not forget to participate. It's important. We need to reflect, hopefully, with a high level of participation. We do need our members to feel like they're part of the process, and it's a shame that we're having this discussion now. We're Warren near the end of his life, and we just can't wait till after that time. He's at peace, and he's personally told me of some of the changes that he's been reluctant to in the past, not in the grand rounds, but in the ether, that he finds acceptable changes now. So we'll find ways to honor him. He's still with us. I gotta give him a call and follow up today. He had gone into the hospital. Doctors had asked him to go into the hospital. Just having trouble balancing the different systems and keeping him alive. But what a wonderful person, and it's not going to take one person to fill those shoes. It's going to take 3 or 4. So let's consider the conversation tomorrow. This is AA4FL 773, and look forward to the DVNet. We'll do it in its current format again next Saturday until we decide otherwise. And Howard will assist me in working on some of those changes after we get that participation in tomorrow's Grand Round. 7-3, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Happy New Year. Today, A4FL closing the net.